Welcome, everybody. Wonderful to have you join us this morning. We do have a few more people who have signed up, but they will be joining us as they arrive. So this morning we have the privilege of learning from an incredibly gifted lady, a successful entrepreneur, a very experienced executive coach, and she spent over 12 years in the corporate space that allowed her to grow to a global level, where she was working with and collaborating with colleagues and businesses at an international level. So it's really quite a privilege for us to have these precious 90 minutes with Shannon. And Shannon is going to give us her tips and her tools on how to work smart, how to make things work more efficiently and effectively within our businesses, within our organizations. And for this, we are truly grateful. Just a little bit of housekeeping, if you don't mind. It would be awesome if you guys are able to keep your screens, your videos on. That'll be great. And obviously your microphones on mute. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please do so in the chat box. And then through the course of the session, Shannon or I will just, call on the question and allow the conversation to be interactive as opposed to one-dimensional. So please feel free to engage and interact. So, Shannon, thank you, and over to you.
Oh, goodness, when I was asked to do this talk, I was both excited and daunted. Excited because this is one of my favorite topics, and I absolutely love doing webinars for ORT. And a little daunted because this is a topic I usually do a 2-day training workshop on in terms of efficiencies and effectiveness. So I'm going to share as much as I can in this 90-minute slot, but please do ask questions in the chat as we go. I want to make sure I cover off everything that you're interested in hearing about. So when I was in my global role looking after capability development for over 180 markets, there was a period of about 3 months where I felt completely overwhelmed. I was relatively young for a role of that scope. I was relatively inexperienced at heavy corporate politics. I was at the time managing agencies, e-learning agencies in both the UK and India that I'd never met. I was overseeing million-dollar projects, development projects, and developing training material that needed to be translated in over 20 languages, if I'm not mistaken. So needless to say, I was extremely stressed. To top it all off, I had a manageress that was the devil that wore Prada. True story. Have you seen the movie, The Devil That Wears Prada? Yeah, I worked for her. And I remember my first day in London with her. She said, Shannon, I have hired you into this role because I know you can do the job, but don't expect any encouragement or praise. But I will tell you if there's something that you do that I'm not happy with. And boy, did she keep her word. I remember at my half-year review, she said to me, Shannon, I pushed you harder than I've pushed anyone I've ever worked with. And the fact that you have not cracked is something you can be very proud of. I didn't know whether I wanted to thank her or give her a high five in the face with a chair. I think a bit of both, actually. But I can actually now say, looking back, that I really am extremely grateful for that time, because it is the time when we are stressed, it is the time when we are pushed to our limits that we really have to learn to work smart. And I am so grateful for that time. And I'm so grateful for the fact that I now can share with you some of the ways that I learned to process large amounts of work in short amounts of time with a lot of pressure, and be able to deliver now in a way where clients keep coming back for more. So today we're going to talk about what really matters, because life is too short to talk about what doesn't. And we're going to talk about how to improve your way of working in a way that minimizes waste of resources, your time resources, your money resources, people resources, and in a way that maximizes your effectiveness. So what I wanted to do to start is actually for you to take a minute or two in the chat to write down any questions you currently have around working effectively or efficiently, communicating effectively, or managing time effectively, or anything that you're currently struggling with that you're hoping that I cover today. So take a moment now and in the chat, just type in any questions or challenges you might have. Okay, so Howard, thank you for that. Yes, multitasking and prioritizing. We're definitely going to talk into that. Nadine sharing managing social media engagement effectively. Okay, so we're not going to go deep dive into social media, but how to manage your time on social media. We will touch base on that. Avoiding multitasking and multi people asking you for many things at a time. Yes, Lynn. We will talk into that. Emergencies and interruptions, how to manage those. Those happen, that's life. Yes, Dan, thank you. How to ensure that you deal with the priorities and not get caught up in the day-to-day tasks. Good one. Okay, communicating delays and delivery. Hazel, good. Yeah, so we will talk about communication nearish the end of today. But yes, bring that up again if I don't cover that sufficiently, but we will take a look at that. Good, so some great questions. And as we go, if you have any others, please do pop them in the chat. At the end, I'm going to go through these and make sure that we have covered them off. Melissa, yes, procrastination. We don't procrastinate, do we? I've never procrastinated, never. I think we're all a little guilty of that. Delegating among peers, yes. Yeah. Delegation, good, Howard, yes. Saying no when you can't do something or negotiating a more suitable time, good, yes. Okay, so we are going to touch on a lot of these. If we haven't, there'll be time at the end for us to go through a little bit more deeply into these. But thank you for those. Okay, so I wanted us to talk about some of the barriers to productivity. So this is a study that looked at some of the barriers to productivity. And as you can read through, I've just highlighted in red the ones that are more internal, which is stuff that we can do a lot more about than the external stuff like insufficient labor pools or legislation, etc. But your internal challenges around productivity in businesses mainly focus around internal communication problems, low employee morale and motivation, high turnover rates, the quality of supervisors and management and leadership, inability to adapt to change, the lack of desire to adapt to change, and training. So there are various things within organizations that we need to be considering when we think about productivity. But what I want us to focus on today is the internal barriers of against productivity. So internal barriers, you're looking at things like fear of failure, being pessimistic, inability to adapt to change, lack of trust, lack of confidence, lack of self-belief, judgment with an E, rejection, doubt, and loss of faith. So these are all things that we go through internally that hold us back from being productive. And I'm sure you yourself have maybe experienced some of this. Maybe you know a colleague or a team member that is struggling with this or any of these. Let's look at the external ones. So you see structure, you see time, lack of training, maybe processes are struggling. So there are various things when we're talking about productivity and when we're talking about working smart and being productive, there are various almost considerations that we need to keep on the table. There's various elements that we need to make sure we're managing. Why do we need to work smart? Maybe some of you can drop it in the chat. Seems obvious that we'd want to work smart, but why? Maybe pop your thoughts in the chat. Why do we want to work smart? What does working smart actually give us? What advantages does it provide? Yes, efficiency, achievement, on-time delivery, meeting deadlines, having a life. I love that. So true. Reducing stress, less stress. Don't we all want to reduce our stress levels? Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So there are so many benefits to working smart. Working smart removes barriers. This is probably the first and most important one. It removes those barriers that we just spoke about, the internal barriers and the external barriers. It removes those barriers to being productive. It increases our self-esteem because when we're working smart, we're feeling good about what we're doing. And when we're feeling good at what we're doing, we generally tend to work better. It increases motivation and morale. When we work smart for ourselves as well as our teams, it saves us energy. It improves communication. It increases productivity. It makes us more valuable to our teams and to our customers. And it helps us to use time well. Okay, so working smart has so many benefits. And most importantly, and I think, so from Howard's point, it helps us to live our best lives. Because ultimately that's what it's for, right? Like we want to be productive, we want to be valuable for our clients, we want to succeed in our businesses so that we can have a high quality life. So that is our ultimate goal. So what does it mean to work in a way that's not smart? Can some of you maybe put it in the chat channel? What does it mean to work in a way that's not smart? So what is the opposite of what we want to do? I think we spoke about some of these already earlier, about procrastination, getting distracted, being stressed, being disorganized. Yes, multitasking, taking longer to get to a point. I hope I'm not doing that. You guys can tell me if I need to be more concise. Yes, so you guys get the point. So there are ways of being unsmart that we want to avoid. Overthinking. Yes, analysis paralysis. In my early career, I used to do this a lot. I used to overthink every single decision, just feeling that I needed to be perfect. Every email needed to be perfect. And the reality is there's no such thing as a perfect email. There is only an email that gets a desired response or desired action. So sometimes it's best just to write a one-liner that's clear about what you need done than to give all the details and try to overcompensate. Missing deadlines, absolutely. So we're going to talk a lot about time management as well. So now let's flip the question. What does it mean to work smart? So it would obviously be the opposite of what everyone said, not missing deadlines for one, not overthinking, not delaying the process, reaching your goals. What else might it mean to work smart? Do any of you have any specific thoughts? What does it mean to work smart? Being organized for sure. Managing stress, being efficient, prioritizing, gathering information required first. Yes, so making better quality decisions. being open and honest if things go wrong. I love that. I call them courageous conversations. And they're not easy to have. They're not easy to have in our personal lives. They're not easy to have with our teams. They're not easy to have with customers. But when we have courageous conversations, we're able to be much more effective and efficient in our lives. So yes, being open and honest if things go wrong. Yeah. So thank you for that, Lisa. Okay. All right. So you don't need to write this in the chat, but I want you to think for yourself. Are you currently working smart? And if you're working smart, how much of your time are you working smart? Now, this is an important question to sit with, you know, and I often encourage my clients to figuratively look in the mirror and really be honest with yourself about the areas that you can develop, the areas that you can get stronger in, because that's really where we learn and where we grow, is when we admit to ourselves that there are times when I could work a little smarter, you know, and it's those times, that's our opportunity to really excel, if we really leverage those opportunity moments. And my hope is that today I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques and tools that's going to help you to do just that. So yes, Lynn, thank you for that. Using resources around you, and Barbara, all in teamwork, working together to achieve deadlines. Yes, so I do another whole day on teamwork, and one of the core elements of high functioning teams is working towards a common goal, working towards a team goal. Because the second you incentivize teams to have individual measures or individual KPIs that are not all feeding into a team goal, what happens is competition in a way that makes a team less effective and less efficient. So yes, we can talk more into that at the end if there's time, but I absolutely agree with you, Barbara, that yeah, we need to make sure that we work together as teams. Okay, so we're going to talk into 6 must-dos. And these 6 must-dos includes setting short lists. And we're going to talk about this, what that means. The second one is measuring results and not time. Third one is automating and delegating. Fourth one is reusing and recycling. I'm going to share what that means. Fifth is time blocking. And 6th is communicating. So what you can see is that the first 5 is actually an acronym for SMART. And I've added the C because I really just couldn't imagine doing this talk without talking about communication and how we communicate well. So I'm going to talk through essentially each of these in more detail, what they mean, what are the tips and tools that you can use to really implement this for yourself and with your teams. So the first one I want to talk about is short lists. And when I talk about making short lists, the reason we want to make short lists is because they're easy to do. They bring order, they help us to structure things, they relieve stress. There's so many reasons why making lists are helpful, but making long lists are not helpful. You know, those to-do lists which keep the to-do lists that keep growing and keep, you know, they kind of roll over day after day after day. Those are not helpful lists. Those are, you know, you could possibly create maybe a brainstorm of a long list of things, but then you want to create short lists that you can tick off by the end of the day, they're done. Okay, so lists do help, but it's really important to actually have 2 different kinds of lists. You need your to-do lists, but you also need your not to-do lists. Okay, so let's talk about these 2 important lists. They sound so obvious, but you will not believe the amount of senior leaders that feel so overwhelmed because there is so much going on and spinning that they do get to some of the urgent things that shout at them, but they don't get the important things that they need to get done in a day. So I encourage my clients to do a very short 3, 4, max 5 things the night before that you have to do that next day. These are the important things that you want to get done the next day before you get distracted by a million other things. You'll know what those things are, right? So the things in your to-do list should link to your SMART goals. So for those of you that haven't heard about SMART goals, they need to be specific, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. So set SMART goals for yourself and your team. And then your to-do lists should be directly linked to your SMART goals. Your to-do list shouldn't be, oh, I must phone this person, or, oh, I mustn't forget to respond to that person. That's not your to-do lists for your days, your must-do lists must be linked to meeting your core goals. Again, I've mentioned have short lists. You know, long lists are extremely overwhelming. They're not productive. You want to have bite-sized chunks. Follow through on your to-do list items. Focus on one task at a time and complete tasks before moving on to other things. How often are we guilty of doing multiple things at once? We spoke about multitasking earlier. We cannot. It is absolutely impossible for us to do 2 things at once with our brain. We can flit very quickly from one to the other, but that's not a very effective use of time. So it is definitely more productive to finish one task and then move on to another task. So in terms of to-do lists, those are things to remember. In terms of your not to-do list, these are some of the types of things you can pop on your list. Things like getting distracted by Facebook, by WhatsApps. How often do we check our WhatsApps whilst we're doing something? Checking emails. I've turned my notifications off. If I'm doing, very, very important focus work, I don't want to be disturbed by other emails. If it's very urgent, they will phone me. And if not, I'll get to it in an hour or 2. People pleasing. This is another thing you might want to put on your not to-do list, which massively impacts productivity. If you're guilty of this, you'll know exactly what I mean. When people ask things and you genuinely want to help, but you do not have the time to help, you need to, again, have more courageous conversations to be able to manage your time effectively. Procrastinating, leaving things to the last minute. I know I am terribly guilty of this. And it's because in my varsity days, I used to do so well, even though I studied last minute. And then the next year I'd leave it later, and the next year I'd leave it later. So luckily it worked out okay for my varsity days, but I can tell you now, it's too risky to do that when clients are waiting on high quality deliverables. So for now, I chunk my time in such a way that I try to deliver things well in advance, and I add in fat for in case I need more time before I have to deliver something to a client. And again, we spoke about multitasking, avoiding that. Really, having a not to-do list is about learning to be able to say no, because we actually need to be able to say no to some things in order to deliver brilliantly on others. Okay, so I want to now talk about measuring results instead of measuring time. So often you will hear yourself or team members saying, oh, I spent 5 hours on this report. Or sure, I spent 6 hours trying to work on this proposal, or geez, I did an hour and a half of exercise yesterday. So we tend to measure our productivity based on the amount of time that we assign to a task. This is not very effective. What we want to do is we want to measure the result. So we want to catch ourselves saying, I delivered a powerful presentation to a client yesterday, as opposed to I spent 10 hours on that, preparing that presentation. Does that make sense? Because if we focusing on the results, then we tend to want to deliver excellence. We're looking at the quality of the delivery and not just the quantity of time it took to put in to deliver that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're wanting to be measuring the result, not just the time. So we need to be very clear about what success means. What does success mean for you? Why? Why are you doing what it is that you are doing? You know, Simon Sinek talks to the you know, understanding your why. What is it that you're trying to create? So when you're planning your week, really thinking about what are the outcomes I'm looking for, instead of, oh, I should balance my time, I should get an hour of exercise in at least every 2 or 3 days. Instead of that, try and think of what results are you wanting to get from that time? And what is the best use of that hour? And same goes for work, you know, what is it that I'm trying to create? How best can I use my time to deliver that outcome? Okay, some of you might have heard of POA, so creating a purpose outcome agenda for your meetings, but you can also do that for your day. So what is the purpose of today? You know, today I want to, so Tuesdays generally are my coaching days. The purpose is to help people to live their best lives. The outcomes is that my clients achieve their desired outcomes and have their needs met. And my agenda is how I schedule then my day to deliver that. So having a POA for a meeting or for your day just helps you set it up to be more structured. Because remember, one of the barriers to productivity is a lack of structure. So, and some of us battle with this more than others. You will know for yourself if you're quite a structured person, if you find it quite easy to structure, or if you battle. So if you battle, then having time blocks, which is what I'm going to talk about in a moment, will be very helpful for you. There's another well, I guess it's a framework that's called GPS, having a GPS for your day or for your tasks, knowing what the goal is, knowing why you are wanting to deliver it, what it is that you're wanting to deliver, and then scoping out the work or the task to deliver the goal. So these are frameworks just to think about how you set up your tasks in such a way that they're purposeful, that they're meaningful, that they're aligned to the desired outcome. Okay, and it's almost really important. This is something that I find that some of my clients battle with, is how do they track their productivity? And you cannot track your productivity without understanding what it is you're trying to achieve. So you want to have those SMART goals, and really to regularly check back and see how close you're getting to achieve those SMART goals. That's why your goals need to be measurable. You know, increasing sales is not a goal. Increasing sales within X market by X percentage over April is a goal. Because over April, you can then measure within that market, have you increased sales by a certain percentage? So your measurement of your goals is incredibly important in order to be productive. So tracking is part of being productive. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is automating and delegating. So a lot of us feel a bit like this. We have multiple roles in our lives and we are trying to do so much. And over this time of COVID, there's extra housework, there's extra homework, there's extra work. Now we're working, and some of us are homeschooling and trying to learn this online workspace, and it feels a little bit like this sometimes, and like this. And there's guilt around not being productive enough. So what do? We tend to work into the wee hours of the morning. And this is really interesting because a lot of my clients are sort of global organizations within the financial space, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a general sense that the teams would actually be working less if they work from home, but that has not been the case because we don't commute, because we don't have a barrier or blockage or a different space for work versus home. What tends to happen is that work bleeds into life. And if you're not good at managing your time, what can happen is you end up, kind of overlapping. Work and life starts overlapping in a way that cannot be very productive for either, for your work or for your life. So, we also tend to have this belief that, when I've just done this, or when I've just accomplished this, or when I've just managed to earn an income of XYZ, then I'll be able to rest. Then I'll be able to have a high quality life. So we put off living our life until a certain endpoint in the future, which never really comes. Okay, so it's really important to learn these two techniques, automating and delegating. Let's talk about automating. So there are tasks sometimes that are so almost, rote. They're repetitive, they're simple enough to automate. Wherever possible, these are tasks that we need to lean on technology for. Be it reminders for my clients' coaching sessions. So I set that when I invite my clients to their coaching session, I set a reminder to send to both of us that we have our coaching session. So I don't need to do it the day before. Does that make sense? Like things like that. It could be a certain report that you do quite intensively on Excel that could be automated. Some of those functions can be automated to be able to pull more effectively. There could be other apps that can help you to do certain things that you currently do. Anything that you can currently do that technology can help do for you, I highly recommend that you lean in that direction. It takes a little bit of time to get to know the tech up front, but once you know it, it is so worth it. When it comes to delegating, this is a bit of a more involved slide, but there are some of you, Lisa mentioned, that do have teams. So I wanted to share this slide with you because this is a very important slide which talks into when it's appropriate to delegate. So when your team member has low will, meaning low motivation or low desire to do the task, and low skill, meaning they are not very capable, then it's not recommended to delegate to them, okay? Because if somebody has low skill and a low desire to do the task, the chance of them doing that task well is very low. So with a team member who has low skill and low will, you need to have a much more direct leadership and coaching style. If the team member has high skill, meaning they're very capable, but low will, meaning they are not motivated or not confident to do the task, you can delegate, but you are going to need to encourage and inspire them a lot more than some of your other team members. If a team member has high motivation, but low skill, then you need to have a very guiding, coaching approach, if that makes sense. Okay? But only if a team member is self-initiating, as in they're motivated from within, they have intrinsic motivation, and they are capable of doing the task, then it is appropriate to delegate. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment and just ask if there are any questions about that in terms of this model, because it is quite an involved model, but I did think it would be helpful to share for those of you that do have team members. Does it all make sense? Maybe just give me a thumbs up or all okay in the chat, or if you have a question about this, or if you have a challenge with a team member around this, maybe pop that into the chat now. Let's just take a moment. I realize I've been sharing quite a bit.
Shannon, how would you, in this delegate skill matrix, how do you address control?
Control from your team member or control from yourself?
Well, I'd say control from, let's say, the leader of the pack, as well as members of the team, because, one has to, a lot of people can't let go, whether you're a team member or whether you're the leader.
Yes.
And also control in terms of, bringing in the consideration of trust. And, there's a whole lot of stuff behind
control, yes.
Delegating.
Yes, so two things I want to say about that. The first thing I want to say is about having SMART goals with your team member that you're delegating to. So there needs to be a very, very clear understanding of what is expected. Very often that step is missed. So when we give instructions and when we delegate, we give very wishy-washy instructions. In our head, we could be clear or not clear about what we're delegating. But if we are not crystal clear and we do not paint a very clear picture of what is expected, you lose all control of the outcome. If I go to the hairdresser and say, go wild, and I don't tell her, okay, I don't want short hair, or I don't want this color or whatever, the outcomes could get quite messy and have no control. If I'm extremely clear with her and say, my hairdresser is Charmaine, if I say, Charmaine, I want this much cut off, so I want it still long enough to be by my chest or whatever, I want it to look natural, I want it to, etc., etc., etc. I have more control over what she does because I've been clear with her as to what I want. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's like the first thing, is the clarity of your brief needs to be crystal clear. It needs to be no room for interpretation. There needs to be a very, 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 very clear brief. The second thing is, and this is another framework that I actually want to share with you, which you can write down, I don't have a slide on this, is capable, able, and willing. So whenever I delegate to someone, and so even if I'm delegating something to a client, I go through this checklist. I check that they are able to deliver what it is that I am asking them to do in terms of time. Do they have the time and resources to actually do what I'm asking them to do? Second check I do is, are they capable to do what it is that I'm asking them to do? And there's no judgment. I'm exceptionally experienced when it comes to coaching. I would not trust myself to cater for your party. I'm just not that way inclined. Do you know what I mean? There are some things I'm capable of and some things I'm not. And I'm totally comfortable with the fact that I'm less capable on some things than on other things. And your team members are going to be the same. There's going to be some that are capable of doing some things and less capable at doing other things. So you want to make sure that they are capable of doing the tasks that you delegate them to do. And thirdly, you need to make sure that they are motivated and willing to do the task. Sometimes people are capable of doing a task, but they are not motivated to do the task. If you've given a very clear brief and you have made sure that they are able, capable, and willing, so you've done that check, then the control piece almost takes care of itself. I would then put checks in place, maybe depending on how much you want to be updated. I would then say to the person, please, at the end of the day, just let me know how you are doing. You know, put in progress check-ins, and you know, and then once those three pieces are in place, you know, you will have the control, but you will also have a bit of peace of mind that what is being worked on whilst you're not there is according to a clear picture of the desired outcome. Does that answer the question, Lise?
Yep, thank you. Appreciate that.
Right.
Is it possible just to put the SMART goal screen back on? One of our participants just wants to relook at that, if you don't mind. Is it
SMART goal screen? Okay, you're gonna have
where
to...
you did the acronym with communicate at the bottom?
Oh,
And
shame.
then, yeah, and then she can maybe take a photo or something.
Oh, shame. You know what? I'm actually going to send you that slide, that summary. I can send
Okay,
it to you, Lise, and you can send it on to everyone because I think
okay,
that's a good
thank you.
summary. Yeah. So I'll send that.
And then, sorry, Dan Sachs has asked a very
Yes,
important
I've just seen
question.
it.
Yeah, do you want to
Yes,
just read it?
absolutely. So thanks, Dan. As a business owner, what don't you delegate? That is a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked it like that, because my steer would be to delegate everything that you can delegate. So I almost, and I actually did this exercise with one of my clients who runs a business. I made him write down all the tasks that he has done over the last month, every single task that he has done. And then I made him highlight, using a highlighter, the tasks that no one else could have done. So this is something that as the owner, he is the only person that could have done that task, you know. And I promise you, it was quite a shock to him because there wasn't very much that he couldn't have delegated, you know. Some of it he was nervous to delegate because he is a bit like me, a bit of a perfectionist, and wanted to be on top of it and knew if he did it himself, it would get done the way he wanted to. But this is where we need to lean more into coaching and less into being super deliverers. Now, as a business owner, if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you're running your own thing like me, there is no one to delegate to. So I end up doing everything, you know, from invoicing straight to like following up with potential clients to booking clients. And so everything, you know, I do have a PA that I'll pull in if there's a rather large project, but I tend to do most things for myself. But if you do have a team, and when I do have a team, I will be delegating a lot more of that stuff. So really the answer, Dan, would be delegate absolutely everything that you can that is not a task that only you can do. Because as a business owner, you need to be focusing on the strategy of your business. You need to be focusing on big new sort of clients and customers, and not in the intricacies of the day-to-day operations, depending on I guess the phase of your business. But if you have a team, well, then you should definitely be moving into the space of delegating. Does that answer the question, Dan? Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. Cool. Okay, let's talk about R, reusing and recycling. Okay. So what I wanted to say about this is, wherever possible, don't start from scratch. You know, it is very rare that we are doing something absolutely breakthrough, as in no one has ever done that task before. You know, and very often you're doing something that is quite similar to something you've done before. So be it a proposal. If I'm writing a proposal for a client for, let's just say, I'll use a real example. Last week, I presented to a client to do 22 online training modules for them. And the proposal was very heavy. As you can imagine, that is a lot of development. That is a very big project. I didn't start from scratch when I did that proposal. I started from because I had an 18-page deck proposal from another client, which was a similar training program. So I started with that proposal and I then built on top of that proposal. Does that make sense? So I reused parts of that proposal around learning styles and around, I reused pieces that were relevant for this new client last week. So same with this presentation, whenever I start with a new keynote, because I do a lot of customized keynotes, I don't start from absolute scratch. What is the look and feel going to be? What does this? No, I found a look and feel and a structure that works. So the skeleton is there. I know the kinds of visual images that I like to use. So the skeleton is there, and then I populate on top of that. Now, all of you have different businesses and different industries, but everything that you do, somebody else has done something somewhat similar. So yeah, my invitation is to really research, reuse, recycle ideas and frameworks and tools. I'm not saying steal other people's like intellectual property, but just their ways of working. And friends that you have also might have done similar things that you can learn from. This is how we get more productive as humanity, is we learn from one another. We don't start from scratch. So don't reinvent the wheel. Everything that you have done, someone in the network, that's why networks work so well. Someone in this network will have done something somewhat similar that you can arrange a quick phone call with and learn so much. When I started my coaching practice, I connected with at least 15 other coaches who had already run coaching practices. And I was like, what am I in for? What do I need to know? How did you structure your pricing? How did you quote your clients? Believe me, people are so willing to share their learnings, especially if it's not direct competition, which, so really reuse and recycle ideas and learn. And, now that we're not commuting as much, turn that commuting time into learning time. I love the fact that we're not driving so much. Although I must say, even when I was driving, I would listen to podcasts, so I'd use the time effectively. But, really try and think, rather than spending that extra half an hour in the morning on social media, use that time to learn something. Arrange a phone call with somebody who does something similar to you in the network and learn something from them. So that's really productive use of time. Okay, let's talk about time now that we're talking about time. This one is about time blocking. I don't know if you've heard about time blocking, but time blocking is about trying to block out time to do similar type tasks together. And this makes a lot of sense, because when you're switching from task to task, you're actually losing a lot of energy. About 70 to 80% of our energy gets used in our brain, and it takes a lot of mental capacity and energy to switch between tasks. It's kind of like when you put on those fluorescent lights and it takes time to boot up. We take time to boot up in a task, and that uses a lot of energy. So when you're switching, when you're task switching, a lot of the time, oh, let me do some emails. Oh, let me do this proposal. Oh, let me do this. Oh, let me do that. Every single time you switch to a different task, you are losing productivity. What you want to be doing is blocking out your time. So from this time to this time, I'm going to answer emails. From this time to this time, I'm going to speak to clients. From this time to this time, I'm going to work on proposals. From this time to this time, I'm going to develop training material. If I'm busy developing a training program, and then I suddenly try and answer emails in between or take client calls, or you lose focus. And when you lose focus, the quality of the deliverable is not as high as it would be if you kept focus. So yeah, we want to time block wherever possible. And this also talks to, when you're time blocking, making sure that you're very intentioned about what you make time for. Make time for the things that really matter. You know, so yes, there's certain home things that need to get done, and there's certain work things that need to get done. I would almost divide these tasks, not do what she's trying to do, and give yourself a proper half an hour. Rather shorten the work meeting and then save time to do the home stuff, and be more effective in each of those. Be more focused, more effective. You will find that you'll get through it a lot faster. So routines work. Routines work. You know, we don't want to be so routine that we have no flexibility and that we have a boring life, but you want to have some sort of routine where you kind of have some structure in the day. You know, so this is an actual snippet. It's from way in the future in November of my actual diary. These are my set times that I put into my diary so that I have some sort of structure. And then every Sunday night, I change it up based on the plan for that week. But you can see my Mondays from 8 to 5, those are blocked out for work stuff with a lunch break in between. I do intention setting in the morning on that Monday. You can see all my music time. Those of you that know me, I'm a little obsessed with music as a vocalist, and I've taught myself guitar and piano and all these things. I set time for music. So you'll see on Monday evenings from 7 o'clock, that is me at my piano. And, you know, it's blocked in the diary, you know. There's also vocal training. If I'm doing training design work where I can do my vocal exercises over whilst I'm working and finding pictures and stuff, then I put extra vocal practice time over that. My Tuesday music time in the morning, work, Amanda's my vocal coach, so I've got vocal training. Again, work, salsa on Tuesdays. Wednesdays are my open days because a lot of clients book me for full day workshops, so I usually give them a Wednesday. Singing training, again, mixes my cousin. We do vocal training practice together. You get the idea. Like everything has a time slot, okay? And when you've blocked it out like this, it's easier to chunk pieces of work into it, okay? So schedule time for work when you're feeling fresh and clear-minded. So you'll see that I do a lot of my music stuff in the evenings, or with my friend Clive on a Sunday, we'll do, you know, music time then, but like in my mornings is time for work. This is a good one that I learned. I actually learned this in my global role. Eat the frog first, which is a very weird saying coming from me, which I've been vegan for 7 years. I haven't eaten a animal product in 7 years. So it's very weird that I put the slide in, but let's talk about what this means. So eating the frog first means do the task that you most don't want to do in that day. Get that done first. When you've gotten that done, the rest of the tasks are such a pleasure to do. So yeah, that's the one that I learned. So always when I'm doing my list the night before, I'm like, what's the thing I really just like don't really feel like doing? Okay, put that top of the list. Get that done first. You know, once that's done, the rest is smooth sailing. So, and then during the rest of the day, sandwich some of the good stuff. So like if you're needing to, yeah, it's just like, I suppose this is also, I actually wanted to talk about the fact that when you're doing a task, you know, you kind of want to sandwich this task with some preparation time, do the task, and then close off the task. Like make sure everything is neatly packed in a delivered task. You know, don't leave a task half finished for the day. Like that's why your to-do lists and your goals need to be small enough, chunked small enough, bite-sized chunks, that you can actually finish it completely in a neat little package before moving on to the next thing. If you leave half open tasks, what happens is you have to then task switch again. Getting back into that task tomorrow is not easy. You know, it's better to just get it done, get those small tasks done. Okay, so this is a little tool that I came across, which has been very helpful. I use it for my facilitation. It's called Vitamin R, and it actually allows you to create a time slice to do a task. And then it like very politely tells you you're halfway through your time slice, you know, which makes you work more effectively in that task. And then it gives you a like lovely like little countdown. You have 10 more minutes to do this task. You have 5 more minutes to do this task. You have 2 minutes to do this task. You are approaching the end of this time slice. And, you know, it's unbelievable. But when you actually have a tool like this, it's amazing how focused you get. So yeah, this is something to maybe try if it's something that would help you. There are multiple ones like this. So I know this one works on my iPhone. So I don't know. I'm sure it's not just an Apple product, but take a look. And then you can, if you did that for a whole day, you can actually pull a report as to how focused you've been and how many tasks. So you can actually put your objective, the task that you want to get done. And at the end of your day, at the end of your week, at the end of your month, you can actually see how productive you've actually been at delivering your task. Timing yourself not only motivates you to work faster, it also improves your self-awareness. And when you're self-aware of how long things are taking you, you tend to improve at a much faster rate. Schedule connection time with your team and with your clients. It's amazing how, because we're working online now, we've almost become too efficient that we get straight into the task and then we kind of end it straight into the next task. And there's no, you know, those informal water cooler conversations that you'd have, you know, when you engage, like the informal connection time. That is important. That social connection time for a team and with your clients is important in productivity, believe it or not. So those of you that think, oh, what a waste of time, it actually, when you have a better relationship, you are more productive as a team. And when you have a better relationship with your clients, you're able to have much more courageous conversations with them. So you actually end up being a lot more effective and efficient in delivering a service to them. So make time for this. Make time for informal connection, because that does improve your productivity. Also, schedule quality time with family and friends for when you're relaxed and not rushed. I know I have been guilty of this when I'm under a lot of pressure. And I then, you know, say to my mom or to my sisters, okay, cool, let's do a quick call. I've got a gap here for 10 minutes. Let's do a quick call. I'm not fully present on that call. I'm not fully present. So I've actually learned to say, I've got a very hectic day. I actually don't have a lot of long-ish gaps and I want quality time with you. So can we rather connect this evening, or can we rather connect over the weekend? Because then I'll be unrushed and I'll be present. So funny enough, when you set longer periods of quality time for times when you're not rushed, you end up being more productive in the time when you are feeling rushed. And set time to give back. So when we're very pressured and when we under a lot of stress and there's a lot on our plates, we forget sometimes to do what really brings us meaning. You know, for me, and you know, like even doing these, you know, these webinars and the mentoring stuff I do, and you know, going and supporting animal sanctuaries, and these are things that bring meaning to my life. They're important to me. They're part of what I define as living a successful life. Living a successful life for me, and specifically within a Jewish context, I really believe that core in our purpose is shining light in the world, we need to schedule time for this. We need to be, you know, we need to hold ourselves to account, to connect and to give beyond of ourselves, beyond our family and friends, obviously where capacity allows. But this being productive and working smart means that we allow time and we schedule time to do good as well. And that we schedule time to take lunch and take breaks and move and exercise and look after ourselves and eat well. This is all about working smart, because when your brain is foggy, when you are tired, you cannot be productive. So when I train leaders or when I coach entrepreneurs, I almost coach them as though they are athletes. We talk about nutrition, we talk about energy management, we talk about how they manage their days, we talk about what is their fuel, what is giving them the energy to deliver excellence. This is all part of working smart, because when you are sharp and when you are, you know, feeding your body what it needs to function well, you will be a lot more productive. And definitely have an end time for work without guilt. So, you know, today I finished coaching at 5:30. At 5:30, it is a hard close. I'm not going to look at the training program that I need to deliver at the end of the week. I'm going to get dressed for salsa and go to my salsa class. Like, there is no, you know, you've got to have a hard close. Yesterday, I worked a lot later. I made my work day later, but when I ended work, I ended work. You know, so this is a very difficult thing for entrepreneurs, to block their time. But that's why time blocking is so helpful, is to say, today I'm going to work till 5:30, or today I'm going to work till 6, or today I'm going to work till 2, but I'm going to work properly in that time. Even if you give yourself a 2-hour work period, make sure that you use that 2-hour work period. And when you finish work, you finish work. Okay, so we've all felt like this sometimes. And most times we felt like this, am I right? Totally empty of energy. Working smart helps us to conserve that energy. You've all heard the saying, we need to put our own safety mask on before assisting other passengers. You know, there's no point in trying to do everything for everyone if we ourselves are going to break down or not have the capacity to do what we need to do for ourselves. So we have to, self-care is critical to working smart. We need to fill our own cup. So somebody once shared this analogy with me, that we should fill our cup, our own cup of energy, in such a way that we overflowing so that other people can drink from our saucer. If we are not full within ourselves and people are drinking from our already emptying out cup, we are going to empty out and we're going to have nothing left for anyone else. So I do a full keynote on recharging ourselves, how to manage our energy. And we talk about the ways that we can do this, but I really just wanted to bring it in here just to say, working smart and being productive is about making sure that you are energizing yourself. It is about self-care. Self-care is not selfish. If you do not practice and master self-care, you are going to struggle to help others. So we need rest. We need rest. We need recovery. We need to recharge. So we need to rest. We need to have time in the day. You need to block it in your day to actually just do nothing. I call this constructive rest, not, you know, you get rest where you like watching a hectic movie that's quite intense on your brain, or whether you'll know what constructive rest is for you. For me, it is anything that really allows me to take my mind off things, you know, be it sitting at the ocean and watching the waves for half an hour. that's constructive rest for me, because it's pausing my body movement and it's pausing my mind, and it's helping me to just, have a still time. Recovery is if you've had a very hectic period of time in work, we need to set time to recover. You can push quite hard. As a human, we're capable of quite a lot, but not for sustained periods of time. We need to recover. As anyone that trains at gym knows, you need your recovery days. So you need to recover, and then you need to recharge. So, just imagine how productive we would be if we charged ourselves as much as we charged our phones. If we kept ourselves as charged as we keep our devices, that's how we need to think about it, because we run out of energy in the same way that our phone runs out of battery power. So we need to plug in to what gives us energy. For me, it's nature. If I don't get into nature, if not every day, every second day, I know I am not giving my clients my absolute best. So if you have gone for a long period of time not plugging into what gives you energy, well, then you will understand why you're feeling exhausted, why you're feeling drained. It's not necessarily just about how you're giving your energy away. It's about making time, blocking out, even if it's small blocks of time, to give yourself energy. I can literally take 5 minutes and play something on the piano, and I will have a boost of energy in a way, in between coaching sessions or something, that it's almost a reset for me. So really, you need to find out what those reset points would be for you, and to block those in your diary. Okay, and finally, communication. Okay, communication is so important. I almost want to say rather over communicate, at the risk of annoyance even. Because what happens, I'm talking with your teams, but there's a caveat to that, so I'm going to talk about that in a moment. What happens when we remote working is, because we can't hear what other people are doing, we tend to isolate. We might be doing productive stuff, but other people don't know what we're doing, or we don't know what they're doing. And so have very structured, good, facilitated catch-ups with team members to inform them what you're focusing on, what your goals are. Give opportunities for them to tell you what their goals are. So really over communicate, but the caveat is to over communicate on the stuff that matters, which is the 2 or 3 goals that you have to get done that day. Don't over communicate about everything, because we are so bombarded with messages already. And this is where it also gets very difficult, because you've got a WhatsApp chat line, you've got an email channel, you've got phone calls, you've got your meetings, and then your team feels absolutely bombarded. So choose a channel, the most effective channel. Maybe what you want to do is you want to have a daily stand-up in the morning, which is like now it'll probably be on a Zoom call, like a daily sort of, what are your priorities for the day? These are my priorities for the day. Is there any support you need today? Get all those things out in the open. Talk about things that you celebrated yesterday, and then maybe send one email follow-up, one email just to talk about, this is what we've agreed. These are the priorities for today. That's it. Then, you want to try to minimize email communication. Email communication should be reserved for cover your fill in the blank, in terms of agreed next steps. So what I do is I have a client meeting, and in that client meeting, I type up the email of agreed next steps together while they see what I'm typing. So they know what they're agreeing to and what I'm agreeing to. And by the end of the client call, I email them that, which basically outlines what they've agreed to do by when, what I've agreed to do by when, And that's it for emails. I don't ask people to do things on emails. I don't, because the thing is with emails, it takes longer to write an email than it does to have a quick phone call. Sometimes I'll write a quick WhatsApp or email to say, can we talk at 10? There's something I want to do, or because then if they're busy, they want to get it, but you want to minimize giving instructions on email for the first time. You want to first have a conversation so they can ask questions. You can check if they're able, capable, or willing to do the task, and then you can email what they've agreed to do. Does that make sense? So over communicate on what matters, but not through email channel, and use email as a way to capture what you've agreed on so that there's complete clarity. Okay. Then be accessible. When it comes to communication, be clear about your working times with colleagues, with clients, with friends. So my family and friends know there's certain times in the day they're not going to be able to connect with me. If it's very urgent, they can maybe send me a WhatsApp or whatever. And if I have a break, I'll check it. But they know that there are times in the day I'm not accessible. Same with my clients. They know which days and times I'm usually doing coaching. So they don't expect me to respond to communication until the evening. Does that make sense? So if you are clear with your team around, on Tuesdays, I am going to do strategy stuff for 3 hours in the morning, but I will be available at 11. Then you block out that time, and then people don't get frustrated that you haven't responded to them. Same with clients. If you have a full day out doing something, and a client emails through, have your out of office say, I'm on a full day out, I will communicate with you, tomorrow. So be accessible, and also be clear about when you're accessible and when you're not accessible. Okay. Use technology well. So this includes project apps, project management apps, social media apps, collaboration tools. Use the tech well. Wherever possible, you want to, try new tools and techniques that might help you to manage things better. I've just included a couple here. So all of you are familiar with Zoom, but for those of you that are not familiar with holding Zoom conversations yourselves, this is an absolutely critical skill now, because a lot of client presentations now happen on Zoom. You're going to want to be familiar with how to manage all the different, pieces within it. And yes, I see, Howard, you've asked a question around any recommendations on project tracking and management tools. So we're going to talk about a few now, but there are quite a few actually. Let's just talk about some of the collaboration tools. So you get your, your MS Teams. I must be honest, for me, MS Teams, I only use for my clients that only use MS Teams. I use Zoom predominantly. Maybe it's just because I work on a Mac, and MS Teams, anything Microsoft doesn't really like Mac users very much. So, but if you're working on another laptop where MS Teams works well for you, it pretty much does the same thing, but actually it does more, because MS Teams, you can also save files and a whole host of other things. Skype, yeah, not many people are using Skype. I do have it, because I do have 1 or 2 clients that like to use Skype. But again, it's good to understand how it works in case you need to use it, but it's not one of the popular ones. Google Hangouts, again, I've used it maybe twice, not really familiar with it. And yeah, it hasn't really, I haven't had a need to use it, but Google Hangouts definitely, if your business is all using the Google products, Google Docs, Google everything, well then Google Hangouts would be a very good one to use, because it'll sync with all your files. So WhatsApp, I tend to try to minimize WhatsApp group chats. I am on a couple of groups, but I do find people are a little bit overwhelmed with WhatsApp. I try to use it very sparingly with clients. I will WhatsApp them, some of my coaching clients, if I know, let's just say if there's an urgent thing that I need to, or like some of them like to have, like schedule the appointments via WhatsApp, then I will use WhatsApp for that, because I know that that's there. They prefer to do, it's quicker and easier on WhatsApp for them than writing an email. So use it sparingly, because WhatsApp is more of a social space. You'll know the kinds of clients that you can use WhatsApp for. I do have some of my coaching clients actually do their coaching through WhatsApp video. And it works really well. So it is a channel you can use, depending again on the formality of your business. For my private coaching clients, it's not that formal. So they're actually very comfortable using WhatsApp video rather than creating a whole Zoom link and all that admin. Okay, now these are, so Slack is something which now starts working closer to your project management stuff, where you can assign tasks. Also, you know, it's like a program for teams specifically to manage teams and their tasks. Trello, for those of you that don't know Trello is a great app which can help you to keep track of tasks and move them on boards, to help you organize and prioritize projects. So Trello is like almost quite a simple, easy to use project management tool. And it's quite visual and quite fun to use. Asana is very similar. You can see here, like you create tasks, and these are on the not started tasks. These are the tasks that are in progress. These are the tasks that are done. So you can create your, like, what do I need to do for the day, and move them along as you've done, tick things off. Honestly, for these types of Kanban boards, these to-do list boards, I actually find using Post-its on an actual board more helpful for me. I like to try to reduce when it comes to this kind of thing. I like to actually use paper and Post-its, and so I always have like Post-its and a pen with me. If I need to do something, I just jot it on a Post-it and I put it on my, yeah. For me, I like using paper, but these are very helpful, and they certainly are very helpful if you've got teams, because your teams can all see each other's boards. So I haven't put them in here, but to answer your question around project management software, I mean, of course, there's MS Project. If you just Google project software, you'll get quite a lot of comparisons. So I've actually looked at quite a lot of those comparisons. I've used MS Project, and it is quite helpful. Yeah, my suggestion would be to actually Google. It depends on the intensity of the projects that you're managing. You know, deep, full projects, you probably need something as thorough as MS Project. For the kinds of projects that I run as a solo entrepreneur, Asana or Trello is perfect. You know, I just need to be able to manage tasks and that they get delivered. So it totally depends on the level of project management you're doing. And so when it comes to productivity, it's really important to note that video trumps phone calls, and phone calls trumps emails. So video is absolutely the best. Wherever possible, if you can get time with your team or your customers or your clients on a video chat rather than a phone call, it is much better. You can read body language, you can have eye contact, you're building rapport, you're building relationship. Plus, you're also getting a sense of how willing they actually are to do the task that you're asking. Video is absolutely best. I know it's a mission sometimes, getting dressed in the morning to get onto a video call with your team or with your clients, but it's worth it. It is well worth it. So obviously in person is first prize, but second prize is video. Now in our Corona times, we really need to get comfortable with being on video. and using the mute button, which we've all kind of gotten very comfortable with, but having your teams also just abide by some tech etiquette. You know, there needs to be some of that to be productive in a meeting. If you can hear background noise is distracting for people, for example, you know, dialing in 2 minutes before a call starts, you know, there's certain tech etiquette that you can almost get your team to embrace that will help you as a team to become more productive. Okay, and then having a backup plan if you lose Wi-Fi signal, if your laptop stops working. And this has happened when I've presented to a global client, you know, and I couldn't get out. So I luckily had 4G on my phone, and I dialed into the Zoom via 4G. Something was happening with the Wi-Fi, and I was still able to present. So you need to have a backup if you're doing important stuff online. Working smart is about also thinking through contingency plans if things don't work out as planned, and having a very safe place to store all of your files. This is a very hard lesson I learned recently. I had backed up all my files to the cloud on a time machine, and this was before lockdown, and somehow my machine kept filling up. Long story short, I took it to get fixed, and they deleted some of my biggest presentations, most of my training presentations and my keynotes and everything, because they were big files. They had deleted them. But because through lockdown, I didn't need those presentations. I didn't notice it until like 6 or 7 months later. And my time machine only saves 4 months worth of your files. Anyway, long story short, in a very hard lesson, after a very hefty bill, the biggest recovery data center could not get me those files back. And I learned the hard way that your timeline and backing up to the cloud is not necessarily a full, like a bulletproof way of backing your data up. So you need to have an actual cut and paste copy every now and again in something like a Dropbox or in something like, and my hard drive, which I did have a backup copy, also malfunctioned. So yeah, anyway, long story short, make sure your stuff is backed up somewhere safe. That's part of working safe, because working smart, because having to redo work is not ideal. Not ideal. Okay, so yeah, I feel like I did go through that fairly quickly, but I wanted to quickly check with you if you have any other questions. Maybe take a moment to, actually we can open up the lines. We don't need to do it in the chat. Maybe if you want to just unmute yourself, and if you do have any questions or any other tips on working smart that you want to share, now is a good time to share it. So does anyone want to share anything?
Shannon, maybe while people are just thinking, because we've just got a few minutes left, I just wanted to ask you, how does one work if we're dealing with emergencies? A lot of us some of the people on the group are involved in welfare and, you know, emergency situations. So it can't really wait, you know, and they may have to stop the task at hand. So what's the smart way of handling emergencies and like real life stuff does happen?
Yeah, look, I mean, you kind of want to, it's interesting when you look at a fire department. If you think about a fire department, you would think that they are actually mostly reactive. They're reacting to fires. Like there's a fire and then they go to the fire. That's actually not true. They spend 90% of their time proactive, doing drills, preparing for fires. They don't even spend 10% of their time actually reacting to a fire. So if we take that into the context of our work environments, we need to be spending a lot of time preparing, anticipating potential fires, preparing to manage potential fires, rather than reacting to surprise fires. Does that make sense? So the first thing I would almost say is, if you're working in an environment where a lot of emergencies happen, do you know the types of emergencies that happen? How prepared are you to respond to those emergencies? Do you have a process or a protocol to, let's just say you're working with beneficiaries, and there's a protocol that happens if if a beneficiary or somebody calls in needing immediate assistance. What is the protocol? Rather than trying to, at the moment, then deal with the new person, trying to almost understand the types of emergencies that come up, prepare for them ahead of time, so that and what you're wanting to do is also have an understanding of when those types of emergencies happen. So if they happen sort of work hours, then don't plan heavy strategic work over that time when you might get distracted. Maybe things quieten down at like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a good time. Or early morning, then block out maybe 7:30 to 8:30 or whatever to do some real strat work, and then be available for emergencies. If you absolutely need to attend to an emergency, try to make a note of where you finished off and what your train of thought was before going to handle that emergency, so it's quicker to get back in. I hope that helps. Anyone else have any
questions or comments? Please feel free to use this time.
In the meantime, I'm also just looking through our questions earlier and seeing that we covered them all off. So there was one on multitasking, which we spoke about, rather not to multitask, to rather focus on a task, get it finished, then move on to the other. Prioritizing, I guess what I want to add around prioritizing is that it's actually really important to know your end goals. When you know your SMART goals, then you can prioritize the task that's going to achieve those goals. You're not prioritizing just off the cuff. You're actually prioritizing the tasks that are important to move the dial towards achieving your goals, your objectives. Okay, we didn't really touch on managing social media engagement effectively. There is actually, oh gosh, and I forget the name, maybe somebody can help me. There is actually an app where you can actually schedule all your social media posts for the whole week or for the whole month. And it just pushes out all your posts. So you can actually do a very good social media schedule and then have it automated. I'd really recommend that. If you just Google automated social media scheduling, I'm sure you'll find it. But that's really, really helpful. And yes, Hootsuite. Thank you, Lynn. And yeah, it was coming to me, but I couldn't quite get it. Thank you, Lynn. It's called Hootsuite. So yes, so that's very helpful. Okay, how to deal with people who do not see your importance as okay, so your task is as important as their task. Effort to give you required information. Okay, yeah, so this is a difficult one because again, you need to make it about team results. If this is somebody who's in your team, you need to see, they need to understand how your task is contributing to the bigger team success. You almost need to make, if it's my task versus your task, it's going to be very ineffective as a team. Yeah, so you want to try to, again, explain the why. Don't just ask information of them. Explain why you need the information. So people are good at, sharing or acting if it makes sense to them, Some people are just always thinking about themselves. You do get those people. Then you need to think, is this the right person that I want to be working with? Or how do I manage this situation? But I think it just does come down to how you explain why that information is important and why you need it from them. That will make a difference. I hope that's helpful, Lynn. I don't know if you have any more questions around that, then let me know. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go back up to our others. Okay, emergencies and interruptions we spoke about, how to ensure that we deal with priorities and not get caught up in day-to-day tasks. We spoke about that, time blocking, switching off your notifications, making sure that people know when you're accessible and when you're not accessible. Those will all help. And then Hazel, talking about communicating delays in delivery. This is such an important one. Thank you for bringing this in. Clients actually are okay if things are going to take a longer time if they know well in advance. If you tell them the day before that they are not going to get what they were expecting the day after, they're going to be peeved, and rightly so. So we need to, first of all, add fat in your delivery timeline to make sure that you do deliver when you say you're going to deliver. You know, I always say under promise and over deliver, under promise and over deliver. So add that fat in so that even if you have delays, you're still safe to hit your target time. But if you're not going to hit that target time, the moment you suspect that is when you flag it to the client. You say, look, I know I said I would have that piece of work for you to review on Monday. It's going to look like it's closer to Wednesday. You know,
Shannon, sorry to interrupt, but I think what's also important is communicating delays also within the team, because if I'm not going to fulfill a requirement by a certain point, then it will have a ripple effect on the team to deliver on the goal. Yeah. So it's around internal communication and accountability. And so if I'm responsible for doing A and I've got a delay, then I need to share that with the team so that everyone is in the know that it could be impacted. I think that's what Hazel may have been referring to. I'm not quite sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everything that you've just said, yeah, the knock-on effects, like, you know, communication is key, exactly as you've both said. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well,
I think we've pretty much covered all of them. So I hope that was helpful for everyone. And just so grateful to have had this time with all of you. There are my details, so please reach out if you have any questions. Lisa will send my details as well, and I'll send you that one-pager summary.
Shannon, thank you. It's been a very, very insightful morning. Great tips. You've just been so open and honest and amazing in just sharing all your knowledge around this important conversation. So I hope what you've shared will help everyone that has been on the call. So thanks to everyone for joining us. And yeah, I'll share the recording with you. And yeah, Shannon, once again, thank you. The collaboration with you over the last several years have been phenomenal. You're always there and happy to support ORT. So thank you so much for that.
So welcome. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care. Bye.